Hi, this is Alan Olson. Welcome to American Dreams. We got a great show lined up for you today. Coming up on the show is Dr. Prasad Kaipa. Dr. Kaipa is a business coach and has advised some of the top CEOs in the world. And we're going to have him coming on the show today to talk about how an individual reaches their full potential. Dr. Kaipa, welcome to today's show.
Thank you very much, Alan. It's much pleasure for me to come on your show again and again.
It's a pleasure to have you back. So if we go into, and recently you were the speaker at TEDx Berkeley,
Yes.
And you talked about having helping an individual to reach their full potential. How do you go about that?
To reach full potential, first of all, we need to have some goal of what that full potential looks like. So, for example, I was talking to 3 executives. One of them did their MBA just then. They came from being an engineer. Another person was an operations manager. Another person was a director. All the 3 of them did the executive MBA, and I was talking to them. One person talked about being an entrepreneur. Another person talked about being a CEO of a large company. Another person talked about becoming a manager and a director in next 5 years. So depending on what you aspire and what is the larger purpose that allows you to have a meaningful dream, meaningful vision, that kind of sets the bar about what kind of a potential are you going to reach. So that means before you reach your full potential, you have to have some clear idea on what does that look like and what is the direction in life in which you want to reach the full potential. Once they have that clarity, then we can work with them on what are the steps and what are the barriers and what are the kinds of beliefs that they need to unlearn. So it has a lot to do with the dreams and beliefs.
Is there a process you take an individual through? For example, you may say, well, what is your potential? And individual says, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Is there a way that you can help an individual to focus and say they may have it inside them, we just need to bring it out?
Excellent question. I find that not all of us have clarity or a vision of our life, or we don't have a dream of who we want to be when we grow up. Or sometimes I ask people to say, what would you like on your epitaph if you were to die? What are some words or phrases you would love to see on your epitaph about your character or about your life? These are all ways in which I probe, because consciously we may have only rational, logical goals. For some people, as I said, reaching the full potential may be becoming a CEO. I have talked to a Silicon Valley CEO of a Fortune 100 company almost 3-4 times in past 10-15 years, because that person keeps thinking of time to retire. But that person doesn't know what he wants to do after he retires, so he continues to lead the organization. So to a certain extent, if you have a goal that is all about you as reaching the full potential, chances are once you reach it, whether it is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, then they will not know what to do after that. And that's a common thing. So I find that if somebody has to discover their full potential, I ask them, what gives you energy? What makes you happy? And is that happiness and energy connected with contribution to somebody, contribution to society, contribution to your organization, contribution to something else that really turns you on? If you focus on making that kind of a contribution to somebody else, something else that you are passionate about, chances are in the process of making something happen, you discover your full potential. Let me take, for example, the Nepal earthquake, which just happened a couple of days ago. Now, there are several people who just quit what they were doing and took like 2 weeks off and they just flew. A couple of them are doctors, couple of them are people who work for the city of San Jose or county of Santa Clara. They say, we know how to do emergency preparedness, we know how to deal with this, so we'll go there and try to direct. Because when you go to places like Nepal right now, the resources may not be a problem in the beginning, but how to organize and make sure people get the kind of resources they need before, some people who are to be dug out can be dug out, or all of them. In that process of these people saying, we want to go help them out, they begin to discover their full potential. So consciously we may not know, but subconsciously through our dreams, through our visions, through our passion, it is possible to begin to get a sense of what would it look like. And so it is a process of engaging them with a series of exercises over a period of time, so that they can begin to discover not only what they want in terms of money, position, power, toys, all of that. That will be the first level. Then underneath that, about society and contribution. Underneath that, their deep beliefs, deep commitment to making a difference. That is where they begin to expand themselves and realize their full potential.
Now, what part does wisdom and compassion and connection in realizing our potential play?
Excellent again. The wisdom is recognizing that whatever I can get right now for myself is a smart thing. But when I begin to look at I getting to become a CEO of a company or making $10 million retirement fund is good, but it is at some level meaningless or empty. Especially people in Silicon Valley, they can get to that place and then they don't know what to do. So to a certain extent, if we can help people to be wise about their choices. So if you ask a question, it doesn't require a spiritual person or it doesn't require anybody else. Even a child, if you ask them, tell me, what would you do if you were to be wise? What would you do if you were to be smart? They will slow down and they will reflect a little bit. They will introspect a little bit. And their answer is always much better. So in some respects, wisdom and humility are the ones that help you to tap into your own hidden reserves, your own potential. Because potential is not like you have a big reservoir and you tap open. If you open the tap, it starts flowing out. It doesn't work that way. When you start working on, realizing the potential, more you dig, harder you work, more commitment you have, you begin to realize there is a bigger reservoir than you ever could imagine. So that connects with certain amount of empathy and compassion. So what is this compassion? It is about, like, if I want to help people who are in trouble, whether it is the earthquake victims in Nepal or what you call people in who went through all kinds of difficulties in Latin America, or just in my own backyard, like saying Eastern Oakland, I want to work with some of the people. If I want to do that, I need to connect at the heart level. If I am not connecting empathetically and I want to take action for them, chances are I won't really take the steps because I'll be afraid, or I'll say someday I will do them, or I don't have a need, a compelling need. So wisdom gives you the right direction, and the compassion gives you the energy and impetus to move, and the connection gives you a sense of satisfaction. Because when I connect with you, when I serve you, I connect with myself at some level. Because in you and me, it is the same spirit, same God, same consciousness, except that when I am selfish, my greed or some of it may block my own divinity, But if I am serving somebody, there is a higher chance that my connection with my own spirit and my own soul becomes visible a lot more. That's the reason why wisdom of the head, compassion of the heart, the connection of the gut, these are the three things. When they align, it becomes a lot easier to reach your full potential, because you have a lot of commitment at all levels of you, and you will not stop till you reach them.
What are some of the common challenges that prevent an individual from reaching their full potential?
The common challenges are majority of the times self-imposed. What I believe, like if I believe that I am so and so, that means, let us say I'm a CEO advisor, the moment I talk about it and frame myself in that identity, if somebody comes and says, I want you to work with the unions, then I may say, I'm not the right guy for that. Or if I say I'm an engineer, if somebody wants me to go and help out in the kitchen, then I may say, I don't have the skill set for that. So to a certain extent, how I look at myself, what is the identity that shapes my thinking, what is the ego that I have. So whatever I am most proud of, whatever got me to this point, gives me a certain amount of arrogance, because I look at the world only through those lenses of success. So in some respects, my previous success or my previous achievement becomes a challenge for me to discover my own potential, because you need to be humble, you need to be curious, you need to be open, and these are not easy. As we get older, we have a lot of baggage. We have to unlearn and selectively forget. So many of these challenges are not extrinsically given. Many of them are to work on my own values, my own beliefs, my own convictions that I have taken for granted, and they were virtues till now. But now they may become my limitations, because I look at world as this is right, that is wrong. That attitude itself might prevent me from seeing in another context what I consider wrong may be exactly the right thing.
I'm visiting here with Dr. Prasad Kaipa, and we've been talking about how does someone reach their full potential. Dr. Kaipa, I need to take a quick break.
Sure.
And we'll be right back after these messages.
I love fishing, with my family.
I think it would be easier to use a net.
It was so much fun.
The times when we are together, it makes it all the more worth it.
Having Dad teach them how to cast a fly rod, and
as long as we're doing stuff together, we're having fun.
Some people see a father and a son fishing together, while others see a succession plan.
Welcome back. I'm here today with Dr. Prasad Kaipa, and we've been talking about how does someone reach their full potential. Very insightful in what we talked about in the first segment, but I want to move into the complacency, avoiding complacency in personal life. How does one avoid that?
I think complacency seems to come when we feel like we have achieved something, we have reached a goal, we have reached our potential, and we don't have a high aspiration, or if we don't have a high desperation, then complacency takes over. So if I can keep asking, what is missing? What else can I contribute? Where else is my talent, my skill set, my wisdom is useful? For example, when I do consulting for some of the large companies, I charge very good money. When I come to some other companies, I say, without even they asking, I'll give them a discount. When some other companies come in and say, hey, we don't have much money, we need your help, I'll try to do whatever I can at whatever rate they can pay, and I'll tell them, whatever rate you can afford to pay, plus $10 more. why is that $10? That $10 gets them out of their complacency, because when they pay money that is more than what they can afford, they want to get the best value from you. So if other people are not looking at getting the maximum value from me, then I become complacent about what I give. So creating, like same thing. For example, when I go to a non-profit, sometimes I even put my own charges to go and do that for free for them. Reason for that is, when I contribute to somebody who don't have any money and they find a lot of value, the kind of fulfillment and a joy that I get is much higher. So when I'm sitting quietly, I made my financial goals, I made my contribution goals, I gave enough donation, and I'm sitting there, only thing you will have is a lot of complacency. So challenge yourself. Keep looking at what are the areas in which you say, that's good enough. Good enough is a word that is enemy of realizing your potential. Or wherever you say, I can do that, that's an area where you have a potential to excel or exceed those kinds of things. So personal complacency, you have to examine in the context of, where am I afraid? Where am I good enough? Where is it that I am afraid to venture into? Or where is it I have justifications not to go about? Those are some areas, if we can look at, it becomes easier for us to deal with our complacency.
So we talked about the personal life of complacency. Now let's move that back into the career.
Sure.
And a person feeling complacency in their career, they've been at the same, let's call it a job, for several years. But how does one move beyond complacency?
Sure. I find, like in Silicon Valley, when I talk about engineers, they look at how can I add 1 or 2 important bullet points to my resume year after year. So many times they want to do a project that will give them new skills or new capabilities or new deliverables. That is one way you can look at in your career. You are progressing. You may not be looking for another job, but at least you feel like you learned something. So if you have been doing the same job and you are very comfortable with it, and you have not taken time to either go through some training, or you have not taken on some new projects or anything else, complacency begins to take over. So many times in your career, you want to take on challenges and you want to start asking questions, and even if you are not engaged with an important project that another group is doing, you might want to go and say, hey, I just want to learn. My plate is full, but I'm doing very well. I have about 10% extra time. Let me learn your project. So that curiosity, willingness to challenge oneself, and asking for problems for which I don't have a solution. If you are dealing with them, you may not be doing the best job, but while you are handling the problem, you are also learning to make sure that your career is actually going to progress, whether it is managing people or learning new skills on the job. Keep asking questions, keep challenging yourself.
If I have to ask this question, a person sets a goal, and they have a dream to reach a certain benchmark in life. How do they know when they made it?
I think that's an important point. Many times people set goals that are too low, in the sense, I don't have self-confidence that I can make a big goal. So what would I do? I would put a small goal and I would feel very happy about it. But if you want to reach a full potential, do set a goal. It is impossible to reach, but then break it down into steps that will get you into some steps which will take you outside your comfort zone, and each step you take that you move towards the impossibility. Like I remember, John F. Kennedy quote where he used to say, if I reach a wall that I am unwilling to climb, he said, I throw my hat on the other side of the wall, then I have no choice but to follow my hat. So like that, if we can figure out a way to challenge ourselves, that the goals that we set are many times all about ourselves. So make the goal and make it to be for other people, not just your family. Ask, is this goal big enough for my team? Is this goal big enough for my organization? The moment I have a noble purpose, a common good that is part of my goal, suddenly what I call in my book enlightened self-interest begins to come in. And in that process, my skills may be or may not be enough, but other people will start helping me because I reaching my goal mean they become very successful. That's the reason why, for example, a gentleman, when one guy called Vishal Shikha, he was a senior vice president in SAP, he quit that company and became a CEO of Infosys, an Indian company there. As soon as he quit, there were half a dozen people who worked with SAP. They also quit and went and worked for Vishal Shikha because they want to help him successful in transforming Infosys from a services company to a product company. They know if they make Vishal Shikha reach his goals and dreams, they are actually going to reach their goals and dreams as well. So if you can develop that kind of a relationship, other people believe that your goals include their growth, then you reach your potential much more quickly because other people will help you 10 times more than you could do it yourself.
When you're coaching a CEO,
Yeah.
you got one set of values, in the leadership, but how does it differ when working with an individual within the organization that doesn't hold that role?
What I found is many times CEO has a certain tendency whether the buck stops with her or him. At some level, yeah, there is a board and there is probably, chairman, but majority of the times there is a certain sense of self-confidence and a feeling that I have the power to do what needs to get done. When I talk to various people, sometimes they are only one level below the CEO, they may be executive team members, or there are people out in the factory, who are 10 levels below the CEO. Majority of the time what stops them is lack of motivation or a sense of what you call a self-induced victimhood. When I think I can do it, when I think I don't have the power, when I think I am not capable, then you are only you keep going round and asking somebody else and say they can do it, or you can blame about somebody, you can complain about what doesn't, what is not accessible to you. So many times when I'm coaching people who are not at the CXO level, first thing I need to help them to recognize is there are only two states in life. One is either you be a leader in your own life, that's a personal leadership. It doesn't matter what career, what job you are in, you are a leader. Second, if you are not willing to be a leader, then you are going to follow somebody else's leadership, whether you want to be a follower or not. That's what I call victimhood. So I ask people, do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be a victim? And psychologically, this concept of victim really prevents people from reaching their goals and reaching their dreams. And this is one of the self-imposed limitations.
I'm visiting today with Dr. Prasad Kaipa. Dr. Kaipa, we need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
When I grow up, I want to work with very successful people.
I want to advise people so that they can pay less tax.
Hang out with my clients on the golf course.
Fishing.
And on their private yachts.
They will all be my friends too.
I want to work with the VCs who will fund the next Fortune 500 company.
When I grow up, I want to be just like my dad.
Money won't buy you happiness in life, but we can help take care of your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important. Welcome back. I'm here today with Dr. Prasad Kaipa, and we've been talking about how to reach your full potential. Dr. Kaipa, I have to ask this question that what are some of the common mindsets that are needed to change in the workplace?
One of the most important mindset that is required in the workplace today is a global mindset. What I mean by a global mindset is it doesn't matter whether you are running a small bakery in small town, wherever you are, in whichever country you are, or you are running a big company. We are continually being shaped by what's happening in the world around us. We are no longer separated by time and space. So what happens with you is going to reach everywhere else. So that means I need to watch out for my prejudices, my own hidden biases, whether I am a male, looking down on female, whether I'm an Indian looking down on somebody else, whether I'm an American looking down on somebody else. I need to begin to identify what are my hidden biases that are preventing me, and recognizing that global mindset means what I consider sacred may be profane for somebody else. What I consider as the right way may not be the right way according to their tradition or their religion. For example, I do things in a kind of clockwise. When we go to temple or when we do some sacred rituals, all of them are done in the clockwise format. I was told by my Muslim friends that for them it is exactly the anti-clockwise that is sacred. So it was like, in the beginning it blew my mind. I said, wait a minute, that's not correct. That's actually not the path of spirit. They say, well, which spirit am I talking about? Till I began to recognize that my own inability to see the things from somebody else's point of view, that is something what I'm calling it as a global mindset. Second one, I believe that's important, is a reflective mindset. We are in the world of continuously, world is impacting us. So much information, so much data, so many things to do, so little time. So we forget that the time is fluid and flexible. As Aaron mentioned a minute ago, we become stuck to clock time. And so if I reflect on, let me take a deeper breath. Let me absorb what you said before I react, so that creating a gap between stimulus and response, a gap between action and my knee-jerk reaction. If I can keep creating that space, in that reflective space, I begin to discover appropriate compassion, appropriate wisdom, and appropriate ability to slow down and do the best job I can, whatever I'm talking about. So in addition to global mindset and reflective mindset, and the last one, I do believe, even though it is embedded in the reflective mindset, certain amount of introspection is something that is very critical, because I'm moving so fast based on my actions. Sometimes I need to look at it and say, am I the right person? Do I have the right skill set? Should I focus on somebody else? So the nobility of my purpose and the common good and the larger dreams begin to come to me when I begin to recognize I have limitations, I have vulnerabilities and imperfections. But if I combine your capabilities and mine, I'm going to be able to do 2 times more than what I can. Like in Kashmir, they say 1 plus 1, the true value is 11, not 2. So that ability to collaborate and trust comes when I'm willing to introspect and be vulnerable with myself.
What have you learned since writing the book From Smart to Wise?
What I learned is I'm neither smart nor wise. That's the first part, because I have a framework for wisdom, but people started expecting me to be wise. And then I was shocked by how much I have to catch up on my own compassion. And I realized I have a lot to learn. And so for me, after the book, I am actually beginning to put what I wrote as my recipe to move from smart to wise. I am beginning to practice that. I have made some progress in that. I have a long way to go, but I feel like it gave me humility, and it gave me a sense of how much grace plays a role in my life, and I'm really grateful for that. And those are the two things. I have a lot more, so that means I'm more compassionate with respect to myself as well as others, and in the context of compassion, wisdom seems to come alive, and that I didn't have it while I was writing the book.
Changing culture within an organization, how do you go about that?
What I found changing the culture, there are two different perspectives we need to bring. One, if the organization wants to change the culture, that means people who are the part of the team want to change the culture, their approach is going to be very different. If the top management team or if the CEO wants to change the organizational culture, there is a different path. Let me start with the second one. Okay. If a CEO wants to change the culture, I found majority of the times the CEO has to watch his or her actions a lot more carefully and find a way in which those actions are correlating with the words. Reason for that is not only the management team, people 2 levels below, 3 levels below who do not have direct access to the CEO, they only see the actions of the CEO. They may not exactly know the words of the CEO. So if there is consistency between actions and words, that begins to generate a certain trust and a certain willingness to follow the leader. I think that is one very, very important part, and I found that's the one that is most neglected by very intellectual, very capable CEOs. Without walking the talk, the culture change is going to be very temporary, it will be forced. The second thing I found about changing the culture is willingness to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know, I need help, and can you help me so that we can both go much faster. When you raise these questions, I found, and by the way, these are the difficult things for CEOs to raise, because the ego and also how other people are waiting to take advantage of the vulnerability, all those situations do happen. But if there is courage to really confront one's own fears, like wherever the person says that's not going to happen, if you can open that up and make other people to help you, then they start taking ownership in the area where you have weakness. Majority of the times people know who is in charge. Only problem is that in addition to the CEO, everybody else is also in charge, and you need to help them to take ownership and accountability and responsibility for it. When the team begins to take responsibility for the culture change, not just the top dog or top CEO, then you have 10 times the sustainability for the culture change to, number one, happen, and number two, become sustainable over a period of time. So the last point which I will also say is appreciation. You have to figure out how to catch people doing something right, because more you appreciate people who are doing what needs to be done. That means if some people are demonstrating the behavior you want in a changed culture, make them the role models, amplify their behavior, let what they are doing to be seen by other people. Like Alan Mulally, I have seen him do that consistently in a 777 culture in making that to be an extraordinary program when compared to Boeing. So first, certain amount of role modeling, walking the talk. Number 2, vulnerability and willingness to make other people take responsibility and accountability. And third, appreciating what you see as a changed behavior and amplifying it so that other people recognize, if the CEO is appreciating this behavior, we also want to be appreciated, so we will begin to do it. Like somebody said, it's easier to catch flies with honey than with vinegar. So culture change is a very powerful thing that happens through a lot more appreciative inquiry and honesty and authenticity rather than forced change.
I'm visiting here today with Dr. Prasad Kaipa. Dr. Kaipa, if someone wants to get a hold of you for a speaking opportunity or working with your organization, how would they do so?
My mobile number is 408-393-6984. I normally keep it on even if I'm going around the world. Of course, more appropriate and if you want to give a larger context is to send me an email, prasad@kaipagroup.com. And several times I'm sending a lot of, I participate in Twitter, pkaipa is the handle, or Facebook. I put out a lot of things. You can try to catch me there as well. Thank you.
Dr. Kaipa, thanks for being on today's show.